Let's talk some bounties. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Bounty Talk. We are on our second episode of this journey.
Yeah.
And
what a journey.
Over the course week or so, we got chapter 1044, which was insane.
So good.
But yeah, before we go straight into it, again, the second episode. Hello, I'm Joe. This is Cameron. And I think we should just go straight into it.
We should.
There's a lot of One Piece news this week, guys. It was a lot of stuff to go over. But the big one that everyone and their mother is talking about right now is one of the most important chapters in the entire series. That I could not be happier to start this podcast with. Because the last chapter was huge, but we were waiting for the build up and the reveal of what it was going to be. And now we're here.
We are.
Where do you even start? I feel like I want to start with the chapter itself first, because there's so much theorizing that can come afterwards.
Oh, totally.
I have so many theories running in my head about, I don't know about you, but so we got Gear 5.
We did. And potentially Awakening.
Yes.
Too. So, and that's still ambiguous.
All right. So what are your initial thoughts on the design of... Because, what are your initial thoughts of the design of Luffy's Gear 5? How we then... Or actually, you know what? We shouldn't do that. No, let's go. I'm just trying to find out the best way to do it, because there's so much. Yeah. This chapter was insane.
Let's talk then. Do you want to first just go...
Let's go in the order of the chapter. I have the chapter right here. Let's go in the order of the chapter. That's probably what we should have done. So we start off with Luffy going what happened to me, why can't I stand?
Yes.
People are freaking out wait, he's still alive. You hear... the first thing that stood out to me was Sanji.
Yes, Sanji can hear him.
Sanji hears the voices of all things.
Well, okay.
Well, maybe not that.
Not that, but at the very least, he can hear Luffy's voice.
Yes, which is pretty big. That's just I didn't realize his observation haki was that high.
It's right there. I know he specializes in it, and they make a big deal. Oh, that's what Sanji does, but he rarely gets to show it off. So the fact that he gets to wake up with something, I think, huge for him.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It was nice.
And then you get Kid, Law, and even the Goro-san, I don't forget his name, but the little old dude that lit the fire, even he recognizes
I forget
which is
called. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not surprising. The fact that he was so powerful that Odin respected him and everything, he should be able to tell what's going on. Especially for the fact that there's Conqueror's haki blasting
and they're able to still withstand all of it and realize that's Luffy. Something is happening, right?
Which kind of makes you wonder, does each individual Conqueror's haki feel different?
Probably, right?
Yeah,
because we know Conqueror's haki can be directed, so it doesn't affect if Luffy's using it, it doesn't affect his crew, stuff like that.
Yes,
and then certain other crewmates on other people that we've seen use Conqueror's hakis before, it doesn't affect them. Yeah, so maybe it's that, but I'm not 100% sure, because I would think that Luffy in this state doesn't have complete I don't know, was aware of controlling his Conqueror's haki in that moment.
Yeah, well, right? Though Luffy's will, as we know, is exponentially just durable. So he even knocked out, right, probably can still at the very least protect his friends. I think that even then his will is going to do that. So I don't doubt that.
It's probably with the will, just if it's in your will to affect certain people or not.
Yes, and he's not going to do that to his own crew, his friends, the people fighting for him. But because also, too, you got to assume that this is not just the Devil Fruit's doing. So far as we know, Devil Fruits cannot bring out Conqueror's haki. No. So it has to be purely Luffy, not the whole Devil Fruit situation.
But then there's the whole question of, is this even truly Luffy then? Because his voice went away. We know he died.
Yes.
At one point, and then got brought back, which then goes into this huge reveal that we go back to Mary Joa.
Yeah,
and we see the Gorosei. And we find out what the heck is actually happening.
Man, I'm so excited for that.
And the Gorosei say that they've been trying to get this devil fruit for 800 years.
800 years it avoided them.
800 years. And they mention that it's almost as if it has the mind of its own. Which one of them responds, yes, it does. Because Zoan fruits have a mind of their own.
We've never heard that before. This is the first time.
But I think that reveal makes sense because we've had objects in the before that were infused with devil fruits that were Zoan powers.
And then that's probably why it has to be a Zoan power. You don't have a sword, right, that has like the flame fruit or something like that. It has to be a Zoan because that's probably the only way they become autonomous.
And they have like life given into them, which I can buy. I can buy the idea of the animal of the Zoan fruit spirit living in through the fruit somehow.
Yes.
Like, I think that makes sense. But then there's that whole... Because I think this chapter just, like, and as a whole, made Zoan fruits way more important.
Oh, so cool. And you know what it does, too? I just thought of this as you were saying it. Mm-hmm. It also explains directly why the fake Zoan fruits, the animal part has its own will to the user in Titan's army.
There's a whole... So we'll go into that. There's that whole other section about, like... Because now that Zoan fruits are insanely important...
Yes.
Everything with Kaido gets put into a new light too.
My boy Chopper,
oh my god,
coming for the win.
Yes, there's that too.
There's anyway.
So we get them saying that they've been chasing this devil fruit for 800 years and never succeeded, and we know that if we get confirmation that there was Luffy's fruit that was on the ship, that Shanks stole from, and that they changed the name because they didn't want anyone to reveal its real power, and we find out that the Gum Gum fruit is not actually the Gum Gum fruit, but rather the Hito Hito no Mi, the human fruit, mythical model type Nika.
Nika! Dude, the sun god!
This entire time, Luffy had not just rubber powers, but the power of a mythical Zoan that's modeled off of a human, that's modeled off of Nika the sun god.
Which is wild, because it also makes you think that, one, all of Luffy's transformations up to this point start to get put into more perspective.
Yes.
Right? And from that point on, too, you now understand that people like Sengoku, right? And I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But just to go off of the whole, like, model human, right? People like Sengoku, then, you start to wonder, is the reason he is as laid back as almost fair and just because Buddha, you know, like the mythical Buddha is coming over him. And now it makes you wonder, too, if Luffy is as free-spirited as he is because he ate that fruit. If that is the reason.
See, there's so many questions, right? Because a lot of it gets put into perspective, both thematically and just mechanically.
Of course.
Now we know why he can catch fire with Red Hawk.
Yes.
Because it's the actual powers of the sun god.
Yeah, I even have a separate theory about that, too.
You think... What's that? Tell me about it.
Real quick, just to spit this out there. I know sun god flames, right? That said, I think it's way more realistic because they say he has the power of imagination. That's what he's limited to. Mm-hmm. And we know that it's connected to Joy Boy in the smiling aspect. He only unlocks those powers after Ace's death. I think it's him trying to be closer to Ace. Yeah. I think that's the reason.
Do you think it reverse works? Because we now know that his powers isn't the fact that he really turns into rubber, even though it still has rubbery properties. Yes. It's that the fruit itself grants freedom over the human body. Yes.
And not even that, will to unto other things. He picks up as we're going to see.
Through awakening, he can affect the will of other things. So my thing is, a lot of powers that Luffy has learned throughout the series has been from observing what other people have done and mimicking it. Whether it be the shave art in Water 7, when he goes Gear 2 for the first time, and he can like instant transmission. Or if it's with stuff like the UFO, like Gum Gum UFO or stuff like that, catching fire with Ace. So what if it's not actually just completely the powers of the sun god, like in terms of just like pure fire, but he's able to borrow that because he's thinking about it. It's like, oh, I can do this. And his body just does it because he has complete control over his body with his fruit.
And I'm 100% on that. I'd even go as far as to say you can make the direct connection. Luffy's imagination is what's limiting his body, right? Pre-awakening everything, it's just his body. So we know for a fact then that Luffy has to at least be able to imagine, you know, Muscle Balloon and the different gears. That explains directly why Luffy sees a train and thinks to himself, okay, well, trains like pump things and they're moving fast.
Oh my gosh! And that's why he's pumping his
That's why he's doing that. And then too, it makes sense as to why why is Luffy all of a sudden he can go into gear 2 without having to do the stance and the pumping and stuff, right? Now we saw he did it with his arm for a second.
My gosh. That was one of the biggest complaints that I always heard when gear 2 happens. It's why does he get this new power up out of nowhere? Now we know why, because the only thing that he needed was his imagination.
Yep, he just had to think that he could do it. And then, of course, continued with, the whole shaping, he sees people doing it, so that he can do it.
That reverse fixes that.
It does.
Which is very cool.
It does. And that's why, we'll go and we'll continue the chapter in a second here, and we'll go into more of our feelings on the whole thing in a second after we're done the whole chapter review. But I have to say, one of the reasons, because if you guys watched the last episode and you got to our review section, I was a big proponent of I didn't want the gum fruit to go away.
Yeah.
And I didn't want Luffy to be a reincarnation. And both of those things kind of
happen, but in a way that works.
But it works, and I'm okay with it. And I'll explain more why I'm okay with it, even though I didn't want that to happen later. So let's continue with the chapter.
But yeah, I think there's so much we can still go with this. I want to just kind of, because we're diving into this. Let's go into actually more of, we're going to skip ahead a little bit, but to where you see him in Gear 5.
Yes.
And you see him in the actual design of his awakened state with the Sun God powers.
Yes.
And, he's got, the fiery hair. He's got the smoke. I love the smoke.
Yes.
I think that's my favorite part of the design. I love the way the hair looks and how it's on fire, too. I think smoke billowing out is, my favorite part of the design.
His eyes.
Yeah.
Cool.
The eye. Yeah. It's, cool, but also it's, goofy, too. And I think that's what I love about it. There was one SBS chapter from a while back where, he talks about why he made Luffy have rubber powers in the beginning. And it was because Oda wanted to always have brevity towards the situation.
Yeah.
And always keep, kind of a humorous spirit throughout fights, right? And his fights have progressively gotten more and more serious, which I'm okay with. But it's almost like a return to form.
Oh, for sure.
Because, you see, he basically just unlocks, Looney Tune powers.
Yeah.
And he's, spinning, we had, such crazy chapters beforehand where, him and Kaido were going at it super serious.
Bloody.
And, and now, Kaido's eyes, both Kaido and Luffy's eyes are just, bulging out and, they're spinning around he's he's a cartoon. And I love that because I know some people aren't okay with it, but, I think what helps is that even in the serious fights beforehand, we were still getting goofy stuff, the dinosaurs doing weird stuff like dinosaurs never did. I think if we didn't get that, people would be a lot more upset about
I think so too.
Why the fight. Kaido's been built up to such a huge monster's presence, and he was that for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
And the solution to that is to just be completely goofy and, not lightening. Lightening the situation.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And in both sense too, it's funny to use lightning because Sun God.
Yeah.
But also, when you look at the fight leading up to Kaido, and I think One Piece is really a master at this point at making you not notice just how goofy the situation is. When Sanji is fighting Queen, and Queen does the whole snake bit thing, and Sanji's body is mangled, you're concerned for Sanji. You're still in that moment this is a fight, and you almost don't realize just how ridiculous it is. Mm-hmm. This, because it's such a big scene, you understand how ridiculous it is. He's putting such a fine point on it.
And the Gorosei even say that. They don't... Yes. I think the wording of how they describe the fruit is very important.
It is.
Because they don't say... there is no more power more strong, or there is no stronger power in the world or anything like that. They specifically use the word ridiculous. Because it is it's ridiculous. It's not.
Sure.
I don't think it's the strongest power. I would classify it as the strongest power yet, which I think I'm very happy that they didn't say it's just
the strongest. Yeah, they didn't just flat out say it. That's another reason I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that because it's still, while it is an insane power up, and I don't think he even says, Luffy says it when he's describing how he's feeling, he says, "This is my peak," right?
It's such a cool line.
It's so good. But I think this is the strongest he gets. I don't think he gets another power up after this at all. And the fact that we're here is man, we're in the end game.
We are.
It almost feels like a modern Super Saiyan reveal moment.
It does,
right? Which is very cool because I've never really experienced that in a show where it works, right?
Yes.
Where it still works and it doesn't break anything, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, for sure. And even just like talking about that in the buildup of it, having the Gorosei explain amongst themselves what this is, call it ridiculous. And then you keep scrolling back to the panel. I finally want to talk about it. The panel that has a payoff of hundreds of chapters. Why we find out that it was Oda's favorite chapter to draw back in Skypiea, right? It was his favorite moment.
So much is recontextualized.
God, Nika.
Like 10, 15 plus years later of why he drew Luffy looking like that.
Yes.
And then 900 plus something chapters later, we see that panel of Nika and he looks almost the exact same as he does in that panel. And people are like, what does this mean?
What is it?
And then Usopp is right behind him with the drums.
Yes.
And then you get the confirmation that his heartbeat is the drums of liberation. And even going back to Skypiea too, I think it's so funny because Skypiea, when I first read through it, was not my favorite arc.
Yeah.
I had to force myself to read through that arc. But looking back at not just that arc, but every other arc where Luffy, because Luffy almost every arc is that person that is helping free someone.
Yes.
Whether it's freeing Alabasta from Crocodile and his underground army, whether it's freeing Doflamingo and him pulling the strings and everything, whether it's freeing Skypiea. I think Skypiea, Dressrosa, and maybe there's one other that I'm forgetting. But those two in particular, now that we know the theming of what Luffy really is, completely changes the perspective of those arcs. Because now you have in Skypiea him versus Enel, which is him going up against a fake god, being brought down by an actual god. And have you gone back and seen that panel of when he beats Enel?
Let the sun.
And he says, "Let the sun shine," and it's Luffy straight up in the sky. And then you also get Dressrosa, where Doflamingo's whole thing was that he put himself as like an angel, as a god.
Yes.
Right? Modeled after the celestial dragons and their wish.
Yeah.
And then he brings him down to and he specifically punches him down towards the depths.
He does.
Like as if sending him like back to hell or something.
Yeah.
Like and then he's the actual god. Like,
and not only that, you bring up the fact that what Enel was obsessed over was the moon, making him a thematic opposite to what Luffy is.
Yes. It's so good.
Yeah.
And it's just and I can already see it, how the theming of it is going to pay off with the celestial dragons seeing themselves as above humanity and like as close to divinity as possible. Yeah. Meanwhile, like the one that's going to bring all that down is an actual representation of it. And I think it also works too in a weird way, where it's like he had to die to get the true awakening of this power, which kind of fits a little bit too. Like with that, like it almost is kind of like how like Jesus in the Bible like died and then came back again. It's like not the same, but kind of similar to that. Yeah. But like oh my gosh, like seeing how much this retroactively fixes and just puts the entire story into perspective. Yeah. Even I just remember what I was thinking. Yeah. In Fishman Island, when he's liberating the fishmen, what are the fishmen pirates? The sun pirates.
Yep. And they have that.
And they have the mark of the sun, right? I was thinking about it again, like that whole flashback with Fisher Tiger, and like because we know he was in prison, and we know like maybe he got the idea, like because we've known that this devil fruit has been in existence for like 800 years. Yes. My thinking is maybe the story of Nika, because we first find out about the story of Nika through the prison in Wano, and how people spread it as initially sort of just like this myth of like people having something to rely on, right? Who's Who, right? I think Who's Who was the first one that mentions it. Yes. So what my idea is like, what if because this has been around for so long, there have been other interpretations of some kind of figure related to the sun that has spread across, and that is what influenced the Sun Pirates, and specifically having the markings and brandings of the sun. Yeah. And other areas like that. Yeah. Like,
I'm fully with you. I think the strong connection you can make is Who's Who, right? He was in prison for a while, and that's where he heard it from a guard. I believe it was the Navy he was captured by. Yes. So he hears it from a guard. The guard disappears the next day. We never see him again. So we know the world government is keeping that hush-hush. Yeah. It's not impossible for him, for Boa, for all of these people who were imprisoned by them to have heard these stories, to pray to this god. And he, as a liberator, like Fisher Tiger, as a liberator of slaves, would take the sun,
the branding,
the mantle.
Yeah.
And there's another aspect too. The fishmen, right? So I'm going to paint this line, right? Tell me if you find any problems with it.
Okay.
But here's how I think this works out. Okay. Zunesha was beheld to some part to Joy Boy, right? We know for a fact that Zunesha says that he or she,
I don't know. I think
elephant Zunesha, can hear Joy Boy again, right? So that creates a connection between Luffy and Joy Boy. Joy Boy probably also had this fruit as well.
We still don't know exactly Joy Boy, like what Joy Boy's role in this. But continue.
But he probably had this as well because the drums of liberation were the heartbeat, and he had the same heartbeat at the very least.
Yeah.
We also know that he was heavily involved with the fishmen, right? And that entire situation is the apology and everything. They're obsessed with the sun. That is a huge deal for them. They want to be closer to the sun, right?
They were as close to the sun as possible.
They wanted to be closer to it because they're tired of being in the depths of darkness, right? And they rely on the tree to give them the sunlight, but they want to be on the surface. The tree.
There's a whole theory I want to go into with the tree. Yeah. But we'll keep going. Yeah.
And so we have that connection there between them. We now know too that Nika, right, is that legendary figure that they were praying to. He is the sun god. We have him everywhere from Skypiea to Fishman Island, probably, and then also, especially throughout all of the slaves. The thing that brings this all together then, we don't know if Nika was a real person or not. We don't have confirmation that they lived.
Yeah.
We don't know if, Zoans...
I think that's another huge question too, because now that we know that there are other mythical human being fruits, like with Buddha and stuff like that, like where do they exist in this universe? Like, I think that's more of a question toward later on when we're getting closer and closer to it.
Oh, we are.
But the actual reality of why devil fruits in this world exist. But I'm sorry, I didn't want to...
No, you're fine, and I'm totally with you. My just summation of what I was saying was, I think the key component here is there's a very strong case to be made that Nika, just as Gold D. Roger was rebranded as Gold Roger, that Joy Boy was kind of rebranded or turned into this Nika figure because
the government was trying to...
The government was messing around, and so maybe instead of taking his name, right, Joy Boy, because that had so much power, they boiled him down to what his devil fruit was, Nika, and that's why that name spreads and not Joy Boy.
And I think the other, because the government, there's so many questions about the world government now.
Yes.
The main thing that I'm thinking of too is maybe they didn't immediately come out and say what the fruit's power actually was, so they boiled it down to its most basic, not boring, but basic whackability that no one would have been able to realize what the power actually was if they just said, oh, it's rubber, right? Yeah. And maybe that was their influence too, to hide its actual real power. Yeah. But what I kind of want to go into now, because this is a whole can of worms. It is. Now that we know what this actual power is why did they let... And I'm sure Oda has an answer for this. If you go back and read chapter 1, chapter 1 is so recontextualized. And you can even see it. When Luffy first eats the fruit, the sound effects around it are him smiling. Yes. Right? Which he says he's happier too. Yeah, he says he's happier, which matches up with the freedom of Nika. So my question is that, and I'm pretty sure everyone's thinking about, is if the world government knew that Shanks stole the fruit, and as early as maybe even when he gets the island of Zoro, we don't know for 100% if Captain Morgan reported him and Luffy to the world government, but at least by Loketown, because that's when Smoker gets involved. Because that's when Smoker comes in. At least by then they know Luffy and they know what his powers are. Why is it then that they waited so long? They didn't just immediately wipe him out and immediately form a buster call and get everyone on him. Yeah. Especially when the Goro say, in their conversation about the fruit, say that the scenario in Wano where Kaido wins, one of the great warlords, teaming up with another warlord. Sorry, one of the great emperors of the sea. Teaming up with Big Mom, enslaving all of Wano and turning the entire country into a weapons manufacturing plant. And who's the number one person or organization that he's going to go after in words immediately? It's going to be the organization that cost him the fight that he's always wanted for his whole life with Luffy.
Yeah.
And that scenario of him amassing his entire army alongside Big Mom against the world government, that scenario, they want that over Luffy staying alive. They would rather have that and beg. The specific word was, what if I told you there was a potential future that would make us beg for that outcome?
Yeah.
If they want that so badly over Luffy staying alive, why did they not go after him when it would have been way easier? I
do have a theory on this, right? So I'm not a big proponent of the evil Shanks theory. I don't like it. I don't think it works systematically.
I think Shanks definitely has a lot more under the hood. I don't want to say he's evil, because I don't think he will be. I don't think he will be. But he definitely has a lot more going on than we initially
for sure.
Way more.
And my assumption is, right, so he, completely stops Kaido in his tracks when he's headed towards the war, right, all the way back in Marineford. He then shows up and stops Marineford, right? He knows he stole the fruit in the first place. They know he stole the fruit in the first place. And now we had him talking to the Gorosei, and they're saying, hey, usually we would never allow this, but because it's you, we're going to hear you out. And he's like, oh, I have, I forget if he says a favor or he has something to ask.
He has something to ask, about a certain pirate.
Yes.
And we don't get the confirmation of what it was. It's most likely Luffy.
Yeah. So he wanted to ask about that. The fact that it would be weird for him to specifically seek out the gum fruit, and then after that's finished and Luffy has it, he gives up his whole arm for it, right? Everything he's done for Luffy and he doesn't know that it's Nika. Because first you have to defend. We don't have confirmation that he knows it's Nika, right? But here's my theory onto why the government hasn't gone after him. Shanks has either specifically told them not to do that, or he has, in the shadows, been protecting Luffy from that eventuality, either reassuring them that it is the gum fruit, or straight up telling them, no, it is the Nika thing, or it might be, hey, because they're a little surprised, so it's weird if he directly told them, but him straight up being like, hey, don't go after him, you know what I mean? You don't want that, it's not worth your time, or we have bigger plans coming, because there's no other, in my mind, there's no other way you can justify them not going after it if Shanks didn't step in, and we know how much pull he has with the world government.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I can think of, and maybe will play a part, this can work simultaneously with your Shanks theory, is that what most likely has to happen for him to awaken his fruit and get this power of being able of awaken and being able to basically do whatever he wants to other objects in the world, he has to die for it.
Yeah.
So he has to die. He had to die in some way in order to gain that power and be brought back to life through it. So maybe they didn't do it because if they had done it at any other time, it would have been like the same thing that would have happened. He would have gotten that power just earlier.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe they wanted to delay Luffy gaining access to that power for as long as possible by trying to go after him but not killing him.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think the only situation in which the world government actively steps in and tries to kill... I could be wrong about this, but I think the only situation in which the world government or someone from the world government actually tries to step in and take his life is during the war. And that's when they have access to everyone there.
Subodi Archipelago.
Subodi.
He does step in at that point. Kizaru tries to kill him. And Pumas do.
Every single time someone tries to kill him, it's when someone in the Navy and someone as part of the world government is right there. Yeah. It's never when he's not there.
Yeah, they're not.
Because when any other person affiliated with the world government, but not super, super high up as an admiral shows up, they're not ordered to kill him. I could be wrong. I could be misremembering. But I don't believe Fujitora tried to kill him. And I don't believe...
Fujitora lets him go.
Yeah.
Several
That's because
times,
of personal reasons too.
Yeah, he personally doesn't want to, but
we don't know if he got orders to kill him or not.
Yeah, so technically he always has the dead or alive on his poster. Sanji's for a while was just alive, so you do know that you can change it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like every poster has that. That said, I think what really gives credence to your theory is the fact that the admirals don't go out of their way to kill Luffy even in the midst of the war, because realistically speaking, right? Luffy throws the thing, they all turn into their intangible states, and then he jets through them, right? Yeah. Very cool moment. In terms of where the power scaling is, Kizaru, Akinu, any of them could have immediately just whipped around, flash stepped in front of them, like, nah, I don't think so. I really do think that it has to do with the fact that they're not trying to, one, either risk the awakening, right? Or two, they are convinced that it is not actually the fruit. And that's why the Gross are like, no, you know what? There is this fruit. We do know about this. I think it's actually his. Because
also think about it too. If you have to, if like the killing him is what brings out the awakening and brings out the fruit, that means anyone within that vicinity will know about what it is. Maybe not know exactly, but they'll know something is up. So if they had killed him in the war, where so many people are involved and so many different crews and people are like, the world was basically like, we'll find out about it. Yeah. They didn't want it to happen there. Yeah. They couldn't have had it happen there because now everyone will know that Nika, like, that he's Joy Boy and Nika is back. And like, what the actual fruit power is, the sun god. So that's probably, I feel like Oda will have an answer for this. I think he will. And I think too, the only other times you see people trying to kill him are during the war with like Akinu trying to kill him and stuff. And it's moments like those, not out of planned strategy, but in desperation. And the only time somebody seems like they're thinking about killing Luffy, not in reaction to him doing stuff, because even Sengoku does not directly try to kill him. Yeah. That said, I know what everybody else is going to bring up in the comments. Oh, because they didn't, because if they killed Luffy and Ace, Garp would have gone ballistic, you know? Yeah. So that's potentially a reason. That said, right, there's another moment where, who is it again? Is it Kizaru? Points his laser at the sub. Yeah. Going away. And again, maybe we're looking too much into this, but that is a moment where if you killed Luffy, he would have been underwater and his powers would not have resurfaced into awakening. It seems like that there is a valid explanation to be made that if you shot him underwater and the sub exploded, that he wouldn't have awakened and been able to destroy it because the water would have stopped that. And then who do we see stopping that occurrence? Somebody from Shanks' crew goes, no. Hold on. Oh. We don't want to have that going on now. Because you're right. Yeah, if anyone else would know about the actual, it would be someone on Shanks' crew.
And he's the one that stops Luffy from potentially dying that time as well. And that's the Admiral that puts his hand up. And in a joking way, too. We don't know if that's just his personality. There's a bunch of discussion on that, or if he really was scared of all right, hold on.
I think he is genuinely scared because we know if Shanks is an emperor, his crew must be insane. I'm so excited when we find out more about his crew.
But anyway.
Now that we're still on the war, I did have one other theory because now we're talking about Shanks and the actual fruit, and we brought up Ace a little bit. So my one theory I saw passed around that I really, really like, because we know the whole fact that it was Shanks never planned on Luffy getting the fruit after he stole it from the world government. Like, it was a surprise. So the one thing that comes into question is what was his motives after, for the actual fruit? Because if he wanted to eat it, or someone else on his crew wanted to eat it, he would have just already done so before he even got to, I forget the town name, but where Luffy's initial town was.
Oh, geez, I am forgetting that.
Yeah, but the fact is, he would have already eaten it by then, right? Yeah. So he clearly had other plans for someone. My big brain theory is that he was meant for Ace to eat the fruit because he already But at the same time, did Ace have his powers by then?
He might not have known. Ace gets his powers on an island.
We never find out when Ace gets his powers, right?
No, he gets it on an island. There is I don't know what you'd call it, but it's like a one-shot type thing. I don't even think it's drawn by Oda. I think it's drawn by somebody else. But I think that's in like the Ace novels and everything. Ace is on this island. There's a big bird monster on it. He meets his friend Mask there. And it is at that point that he's
read this.
Yeah, he's hungry, and they're gathering fruit, and he eats fruit, and he's like, "Man, this tastes terrible." And then his hat lights up on fire, and he's like, "Oh my god, you're on fire." He's like, "I am," and then they figure it out, and that's how they escape the island because of his power.
I have to read that. But because me and mine immediately thought, wait, you can't eat 2 devil fruits, and that's the whole reason why Blackbeard.
But he might not have known that, especially how young they were. I think Ace was a bit older.
I think Shanks would have known that though. Shanks would have.
But if you eat it on a random deserted island and don't show up again for a few months to get off of it, you have no way of knowing that Ace had a devil fruit.
That's true. Yeah.
So that is a still credible theory.
Yeah. But where I wanted to go with that is specifically why it's Ace is because Shanks has to have known that Ace was Roger's son.
Dude, spoilers.
We're in the middle of a chapter 1044 1044. We should have probably put spoilers out at the time. We'll put it in the title. But yeah, so like my thing is like he had to have known that Ace was Roger's son, and maybe he knew he had to have known what the actual fruit was. He had to have known what the actual power was. So maybe his line of logic was to try and wake Joy Boy, like get everything together. Like I think the 3 keys that you probably need are Joy Boy, the Will of D, and then oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the other one. But like those 2, right? Yeah. You need those 2 at least, and
probably Conquer Taki.
And probably Conquer Taki or something like that. And we know Ace has the Will of D. Yeah. We know Ace has the Will of D, whatever it is, and then we have like. I would say that gives more credence to the theory that Joy Boy is definitely interlocked with the fruit itself and not something that's like, inherited through some unknown X factor like Luffy's mother or something like that. I think the fact that we do know I thought for before this chapter that us not knowing Luffy's mother was going to play a big part in this. I don't think so anymore.
Oda has said before too that He hasn't like directly said it doesn't matter. He just said like, oh, she's a woman. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't seem like he's very interested.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where like my
your take on it.
Yeah, I think that's my take. I think Shanks his initial plan was to give the fruit to Ace. Yeah. And then Luffy ended up taking it instead. And then that's why he's been so protective over Luffy and it ends up working out in the end because he has the Will of D too. So I think that's my theory with that. One of my other big theories, because we mentioned it earlier when we were talking about Fishman Island and the whole tree, is that now that Zoan fruits are so much more important, I want to go into like this whole theory now with like Noah's Ark, right? Mm-hmm. And like the actual trees, because we know that the devil fruits originated from most likely the 2 trees, Adam and Eve.
Probably. Right? That is a very strong possibility.
I think it's leaning more and more towards that. And then we also just like have the existence of like Noah at the bottom of the sea, Noah's Ark. So my thing is with Noah's Ark, in the biblical context, it was designed to keep 2 of every animal alive to survive the flood. So what if Noah's Ark is because Noah's Ark is so tight, like when we first see it in the series, it's in very, very close proximity to Adam, like the first tree. And if Adam and Eve are somehow linked to the creation of devil fruits and Zoans, what if the Zoan fruits in some way or form, because they're so directly tied to animals, what if they're somehow tied together in like the how devil fruits actually came to be, like, and maybe maybe Joy Boy's failure was like actually like somehow sinking the ship or something, and like or something going wrong with the Zoan devil fruits. I don't know. Like that was my whole idea.
I like it. I'm not sure the Noah is directly connected to the animals. I know it's really easy to make that like connection. I totally see it too. So I could be completely wrong. Yeah. My assumption is that the tree is definitely where they come from, the Adam and Eve trees. Especially too, in the opening shot of the devil fruits, when they're explaining them, they look like they're sinking into water. Yeah. There's like a light on top. It's very much how you see Fishman Island with I don't know that the Noah was made for that reason. They have said it was made to ferry like the people away from the tree if there was ever like a problem. My assumption is Joy Boy's failure was trying to get them up to the surface, right? I think, though, a huge factor into why they were pushed so far down into the depths is the devil fruits. I think there's going to be a connection there because they're so tied to that tree. Whether they were the ones to go and grab the devil fruits off of like the sea floor or something, or extract them from the tree and then were banished down there, or the Noah was used to ferry them back and forth and stuff, I think that could have a role.
And that must have probably taken place during
the Void Century.
But we also know that that at least Luffy's devil fruit has been around, and the world government, or
the world government,
maybe not the world government. I mean, but that's the thing. Like, we know that the world government does not exist in the world as it is in its current state until after the Void Century. But the Goro say that they've been trying to find the Gum Gum fruit for 800 years. So did the lineage of whatever world force that is behind the world government, had that existed for so long behind them? Because then if your scenario didn't happen until the Void Century, then devil fruits would have already, like, devil fruits wouldn't have existed by then. But we know devil fruits have, at least this particular devil fruit has existed for almost 800 years.
Yeah, the very least. Unless, of course, I mean, like, I don't want to get too far because this is like really going into theories.
Yeah,
in case it's like only the mythical ones existed originally and the rest of them came after and stuff. But I don't want to get into that. You are completely right, though. The fact that the timeline would make that hard. Yeah. And that's, like, the fun thing about, like, discussing theories and all. It's like you have this idea, you flesh it out, and it's like, all right, but there is evidence to support the contrary, so you move away.
And there's so much.
Yeah.
We're even going into it, like, it may seem like we're going in way too deep, but at the same time, like, it could very well be, like, all of this. And then, even if it's not, like, it opens up other avenues into thinking about other things that end up becoming, like, you know, actually true. Which I love. Like, I love this, for sure.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Something I do want to ask you then. So, now with, like, the revelation of the devil fruit, they have, like, the whales inside them and everything. There's another key component that people have been talking about. Luffy's eyes. They have the rings around them now. And a lot of people, a lot of people, right, have been suggesting that the two rings are two souls in one body. Because the other people that have it, Cavendish had it, and we know he has two sides of himself. Emu has it. We don't know anything
about him.
There's
Mihawk
another person.
Has it too.
Mihawk has it. We don't know.
But that's weird because we don't know enough about Like, we've never seen Mihawk display split personality tendencies or multiple person tendencies. Like, so that's the only reason why I'm like, I don't think I'm not fully sold. I'm not sold on it being a split personality thing because of Mihawk. And even with the Cavendish thing, like, I sort of buy it, but at the same time, like, the reason why Cavendish is like that isn't a huge deal. Yeah. Like, it's not super important to the story. I think it absolutely is important for Im. I think 100% it is going to be important for him.
And, but there's always the chance that it really is just an aesthetic choice.
Yeah, I think it could be an aesthetic choice.
Which is always possible. I forget who else. There was one other person. There was a bigger amount of... somebody had a bigger payoff to the fact that it was two souls. I'm forgetting who it was that also had the ringed eyes. But, you know, regardless... now that we're talking about what it looks like, did you want to go into how you would judge, like, the form and its reveal and everything?
I would say that in comparison to, like, other gears and
stuff and how they work,
this is definitely the best one. Definitely the best one because it has like the whole mystery and suspense of what it actually is. It retroactively makes all the other forms make so much more sense in terms of why he's just able to pull them out of nowhere. Because his imagination is the real power behind it. I think this one tops it. Like,
and it looks so cool.
Yeah, like I like how Gear 4 looks, even though it's like stupid and goofy.
Yeah.
But I think this one is like the perfect mix of it looking like really cool, but also keeping like that goofy aspect of it.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Yeah, I love this design of Luffy so much.
The fire hair. I know. I've heard other people say too that especially with the fire hair, it's almost like an homage to the original awakening of like the Super Saiyan and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he made it with that intention behind it. There is that parallel to what I assume people felt. You know, as you were saying earlier, what it was like to watch Super Saiyan happen
for the first time,
and the fact that there's just been so much build up, so much hype around it, and to see it and have it be something you did not expect. No one, and to be fair, Oda wasn't coy with this either. He straight up showed us this form, and in a cover page. Yeah, he showed it to us. He also showed it on Nico Robin's form, or Devil form. Yep, she did. So he's done that. The rest of that chapter. I've been looking at it, by the way. If Frankie turns into Donkey Kong.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so funny.
Oh, if everybody on that chapter.
Oh, yeah, like that, because that panel was made like after Smash Brothers had like finished its development and everything. So everyone thought, it was just in commemoration for that. Like, he's Ken, he's Ken with the glowing hair or whatever. And then like, Ken. I think Robin was like Morrigan from Darkstalkers or something like that.
She's the devil thing. And then even Sanji is like kind of a Call of Duty-esque soldier. And that was before the German 6-6 thing happened with his raid suit.
My gosh.
So I know a lot of people have been looking at that and like, if the rest of you start turning into video game characters.
And no one thought of anything about it because it was just like, Smash Brothers was having a thing at the time. Which is so funny. But I just remembered this whole conversation. There's like two big things I want to get to and like theories left that we want to get into. This is the first of them. And that is one person that I can't believe we didn't talk about when we were talking about the war and what this all means. Blackbeard.
Yes.
Because Blackbeard, have you gone back and looked at the Ace versus Blackbeard fight now?
I have not yet. The
whole thing is light versus darkness.
Yes, I have.
And we know Blackbeard has always represented the moon with his black hole powers now and like everything. So the clear parallel, even more of a parallel between him and Luffy, this being literally with him being representing the sun and heat and light, with him representing the moon and darkness, which is like so sick. But now my thing is like, maybe do you think he was trying to get Luffy's power too?
Definitely not at Marineford. Okay. I'm so confident that it was not his intended goal, because if that was, then he would have done it at
Impel Down.
Yes, Impel Down. Which, by the way, yes, obviously Luffy overcomes everything, and like he's a liberator and stuff.
You're right. Even at Impel Down. Yep.
But I would say that he may be interested in it now. That might spur the next thing. I would be happier though. And again, this is a writing thing versus a fan enjoyment thing. I do like to separate those. It would make me as a fan happier if he didn't go for that, but potentially went for the counterpart fruit that I'm so positive this has to have, because even in Skypiea, they name the god of the sky, right, or the god of the sun, but they also name the god of the earth, and they name like the god of animals and stuff too. It stands to reason that there probably is other god-like devil fruits out there. Yeah, and I'd be way happier if Blackbeard was searching for one of those and just kind of goes like so like Joy Boy Nika finally comes back, right? Yeah. And he's like, give me a little bit more time, and it's not gonna matter, you know?
Man, because now because we still don't know why he's able to have two devil fruits.
Yeah, I'm a big.
I think his black, and there is no coincidence that the Gum Gum fruit and his fruit look very similar design wise. That's not a coincidence anymore. My theory is that he already has a god fruit, and that whatever his black hole power is relates to that. Maybe it's I don't think it's the moon god. I mean, it would fit, but I don't think there's enough. We know black hole darkness is the whole thing. Yes. But I don't know if there's enough credence for the moon just yet in his thing.
Well, I would say the moon is probably going to be more of a parallel to Emu, if I had to guess going forward. Yeah. I think that's where we're going to get that. Just with, Blackbeard, though, in terms of like what it could parallel, there's the sun and the moon, and then there's light and dark. And I think that's a different parallel we're going to get as you were going on, right? Like, light and dark is what's gonna clash there. Anger versus happiness, because there's a difference between a smile and like a grimace. You know what I mean? Like when somebody like winces or something in pain.
Yeah.
Both have like the smiling kind of effect, but there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And Blackbeard, by the way, is someone who has an incomplete smile.
Yeah.
He has teeth missing.
Mm-hmm.
I really do think that, and I like your idea too, potentially the what's it called again? The dark fruit?
Yeah, the dark yeah.
Is it that?
I think it's that. Yeah, I don't remember what the fruit is actually called.
But that could be a Zoan masquerading as Logia. And we also know that Luffy's paramecia did not work under normal means. He could not create with his awakening, and he did not manipulate things. It was just like, oh, your body is?
Yeah.
That's weird. Blackbeard's fruit is weird too. He cannot turn intangible.
He can't turn himself into...
He cannot. Yeah. He can absorb things, but he himself, remember, like, deals extra pain and stuff. Like, that's
so in the Ace fight. And he even has a line where it's like, Ace says something along the lines of, if you're a Logia type, this shouldn't hurt you as much as it is. And now we know that like this whole mythical zone. Oh my gosh!
And he was searching for one specific fruit in a sea of them. Yeah. So again, potentially we don't know a lot about him and his upbringing. We don't know his ties to rocks potentially. There's a lot of.
At the same time, we also knew that Burgess in Dressrosa was specifically going after Ace's fruit.
Yes.
Do you think that's because he didn't know that Ace's fruit wasn't wasn't Nika's fruit?
I have to say that because Blackbeard let Ace die and didn't like absorb him or anything after the fight and didn't take the fruit, my assumption is that he didn't know about the the Hichihicho model Nika. Mm-hmm. He didn't know about that. I'm gonna assume the rest of them didn't either. They thought the Gum Gum fruit was just the Gum Gum fruit, and they thought the Nika fruit was just going to appear as the Nika fruit. They didn't know it was masquerading. Yeah. I think Breeze just wanted it because it was so strong. He himself says he wants to eat it too. Yeah. So I don't think it was like for Blackbeard's intentions.
Yeah, Breeze does say, I remember he wanted the fruit himself.
Yeah. So that is, though, still a crazy kind of well to dive into.
One other thing I'm thinking of too, it's crazy because like the more you think about it, there's even more like things that you can like possibly draw from this. First thing that comes to my mind is even like just like looking at it thematically, Luffy's hat kind of looks like the rising sun.
It does
a little bit, which fits too. But since you were also talking about Im, and we know that's going to be our big bad, and like the moon, like and his potential connection to the moon. If he's potentially connected to the moon, what does the moon affect? The tides. Yeah. And then the whole thing with him and water being like the enemy of everyone that eats devil fruit. Maybe there's something there. I think that could work a lot.
I think it could too.
Yeah.
And again, I'm looking forward to it. This really did turn to like a big like theory video, like what if I was just rambling, but it's just so much fun. We got so much with this chapter. I think to finish it out, do you want to go back to just the fight between him and Kaido?
I think to finish it out, I think we should bring it back to Kaido. Because Kaido is, now that we know that Luffy's fruit is
Joy
Zoan,
Boy, essentially.
It's essentially Joy Boy, and it's a Zoan type. And his whole crew is full, and like, we know Zoans have way more importance. Now I do want to tie this back to this. Yeah. And that's, that my whole theory, and we know Kaido has been obsessed with Joy Boy. For one reason or another. We haven't gotten this far. My theory is that for the next chapter, is that within the next 2 chapters, we'll finish the Kaido fight, and then we'll get the flashback. And I think his connection to Joy Boy and why he's been searching for him for so long and how he developed his crew is connected to all this, and that's why we needed to get this reveal now before we get his flashback. Yeah. What if he was trying to connect? Like, trying in some way or form to bring out Joy Boy himself? Because we know that Joy Boy, it's safe to assume, like 90% sure that Joy Boy is linked to this fruit, right? And we know that this fruit is a Zoan, and his whole crew is full of Zoans, right? And all of like the Smile fruits, they're all Zoan fruits. What if he was methodically? I can't speak. Methodically trying to recreate a fruit that could be Joy Boy's fruit through this whole experiment, and not even just that. Now that we know it's called smile fruits,
yes,
and that the failed ones force people to smile and not experience any other emotion or to express any other emotion, could be an offshoot of him trying to get something along the lines of the Will of D, where when they die, they always smile and have that. Like, I think there's a huge connection there.
For sure. I think, too, you could go further in depth and just say that there's a thematic parallel of Luffy bringing smiles to people's faces and Kaido forcing them in his quest to be Joy Boy and versus Luffy's quest to be the Pirate King. Nothing to do with Joy Boy, doesn't know what it is, doesn't care, honestly, right?
And the fact that it's also a mythical zone too, I'm just thinking now too, the fact that Yamato has a mythical zone is super important too, because maybe he was trying to inflict his will onto Yamato by having a mythical zone too, in a sense, kind of like...
I think, but didn't Yamato get hers from the band of Bushi in the cave that he was thrown into?
I don't remember how Yamato got there.
I think that...
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
Don't take this for granted. I remember them saying they all kind of sigh and like, no, the kid has to eat. And they put the food in front of the kid. And I think that ends up being the fruit.
I don't think that was the fruit.
Is it not?
I don't think that was the fruit.
Maybe it wasn't. Because I can't remember. But there is a chance. I have to say, though, Kaido does not immediately recognize Joy Boy or Nika. Kaido is just like, Luffy. He's like, thank you. Thank you for not being dead. I'm so grateful. Let's continue this.
I love that. It's
such a great moment.
Yeah.
But if we're...
keep going.
I was just saying, but if we're looking specifically into the whole Joy Boy connection thing, the fact that Kaido does not immediately say, oh my god, you're Nika, you're Joy Boy, that implies that he doesn't know that this is the form that takes.
And what he was looking for this whole time.
Yes, he doesn't know that. Neither does Luffy, by the way.
No one does.
Crew, no
one on Wano right now knows outside of Momo because Zunisha told him.
Yes, and Yamato because Momo told.
Yamato. Yeah. I had a thought and I lost it. Right. I think it's so freaking cool and fits in character of him where he thanks Luffy for still standing up and apologizing, because it stands in such contrast to how every other villain reacts to Luffy when he gets back up. Like, whether it be Crocodile or Doflamingo or whoever have you, they're always clearly upset that Luffy is still standing. Kaido being the only one that thanks him is very cool thematically. And I think that could also maybe go somewhere where I could, depending on when we get his flashback and we see why he really went to all the lengths that he did, maybe even the fact that he thanks him could go somewhere. Maybe he gets some sort of I don't think he gets completely redeemed, but maybe he does something along the lines of helping them by the end of it, in a sense, because I don't know, there's a whole number of factors of who could potentially show up after Kaido gets beaten, whether it be the rest of the members of the world government or, I don't know, Blackbeard shows up. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of possibilities because we don't know what's happening in the outside world right now.
We do not. We just know the Navy's on their way.
Yeah, and the Reverie happened too.
And they might have Sabo. We don't know that. My assumption would be, and that would be, I don't see it happening personally in terms of writing. Would be kind of cool to see Kaido either hold off the Navy to let the Straw Hats escape or something, or tell his forces to do that as his last dying wish, or just in general. Because I think if I had to make predictions for the next chapter, we're going to get more of the fight. Right, we're probably going to get at least one cutaway to someone else. You know what I mean? Reacting. Oda likes to at least sprinkle those in, and then I think either going to get a good chunk of, or at the very least start Kaido's flashback. I think this next chapter is where we're at least going to see a bit more of his past, because I don't think it's just going to be them duking it out for 20 pages. No, I really do think it's going to start Kaido's flashback. That said, there's going to be some punches thrown. There has to be. There's no way
there will be. And side note, if depending on how this flashback, because obviously when we get this flashback, we'll find out more about Yamato. I am way more down with Yamato joining the crew now because of Yamato's obsession with Odin, and following his quest to join the Pirate King lines up with, now that we know that Luffy is such a key aspect of that and that whole
100%.
journey.
Yeah.
And with him being Nika, I think that lines up a lot more thematically, especially if we find out that maybe like Kaido was trying to do something with Joy Boy through Yamato. Well, so I'm way more down with them joining the crew now after this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would for sure be too. I think too I would still like a little more out of Yamato.
Yeah.
But because we're so not focused on that right now, I have to say that regardless of what happens, stuff like this is what reaffirms my faith in Oda to bring out something that nobody was expecting, but most people appreciate in a way that feels unique to One Piece, and at the same time refreshing
everything that had come before it and changing the perspective. And it's crazy how he does this 20 plus years later.
Yeah.
It's like the 25th anniversary of like the whole series this year.
Yeah.
And like he saved that whole, like, did this whole reveal that changes everything and like puts so much of the prior story in a completely new light.
Oh, yeah.
And it just makes me so excited to see what's coming next.
Same.
But I think that calls it. We went into like theory time with this video.
We
didn't even get to everything in this chapter.
We didn't, but
we can do that next week with the next chapter. And there was a bunch of other One Piece news that happened this week too. So we can definitely cover that next time.
Yeah.
But this has been episode 2 of Bounty Talk. Thank you guys for sticking through. And we will catch you guys next week for the next chapter, 10:45.
Yeah,
10:45.
Absolutely.
So until then, we'll see you guys then.
Keep those bounties rising.
Yep.